actually wanted to go back to the first, the question that
the first
Tim
day.
had. Yeah, first day. Like, when you realised, you know, it was game on. Because I know Mick, it's a shame he's not here, because he's got a really cool story he tells about, like, before it was even game on, but game was on.
Yeah.
And I won't tell that story for him, because that's his. But it was that Tuesday where game starts. Like, all day is still kind of set up and kind of getting into it. And then they have there's a big ceremony to open up Drachenfest where all of... So every camp has got an avatar, which is like an avatar of whatever dragon they represent. They're all different colours. They all come out. They've got awesome ass costumes. They introduce themselves. And there's a huge festival and fireworks and belly dances and I don't know. It's a really big festival. But then as soon as that ceremony's over, bam, it's game on. You're in character. And after I watched that festival or that ceremony, I was like, yeah, cool, man. Went back to camp and sitting around with the Craftsman's Guild. I was in Grey Camp, which is like the magic camp. Sitting around drinking and having a good time. It was warm, had my shirt off, just chatting with everybody. And we hear something up at the gate. And I'm going, is there a problem up there at the gate? And they go, no, there's no problem. If there's a problem, you will hear somebody shouting, alarm. And as soon as they said that, we hear, alarm. Fuck! All right, well, I had my buckler there, had my kukri, ran out to the gate. But by that point, they'd already let Black Camp breach the gates and storm all the way down the courtyard. They basically already had our banner. So it was like, okay, there's not much I can do here. So, oh well, you've got a banner now. But like, it was that quick. They don't sort of wait to telegraph that we are going to roll into a battle. You there, come out and deal with this siege. They're like, no, straight in, we're taking your banner, deal with it. First day, and you never got it back the rest of the festival.
Did they take any eggs?
We didn't have any eggs at that point.
First, just opened. No eggs.
No eggs would have been distributed. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
some eggs carry over sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, we don't have any.
Usually you do get... Well, when we were there, you get given one, but you don't just get given one like an other character thing. They actually deliver it.
Yeah, no.
And you actually have a ceremony, or they had a ceremony and all that type of stuff to go with it becoming part of the camp.
Yeah.
So it was a case of... Because you don't have it right at the start, so it becomes part of the very first day. Well, at least it was for when I was doing it in the gold camp.
Yeah.
Early in the morning, it's basically just you got delivered.
Yeah.
Technically, someone could come and take it from you.
Because I've only ever seen eggs exchanged, so like given to us by other camps as like a bounty or a gift or something. Or
I think it's one of those
stolen by copper spies.
I think it's one of those.
Oh yes, you did say a copper spy story.
Oh no.
We'll get to that later.
Yep.
I think it comes down to culture again. I think the eggs, because otherwise people would just be like trying to gank people for eggs left, front, and center here and there.
Yeah.
What? But see, that's the thing, because they deliberately set it up so that you can't.
Yeah,
You
there's
have
no
to have
mine, yoink.
You have to have the chest or something.
Yeah,
that goes with it.
And that requires
Egg
two
carrier.
people to carry it slowly because it's so incredibly heavy.
Is it 4?
They increase it every year.
Yeah. We'll go back next year and it will be 8.
An entire faction must carry.
But I'm pretty sure you have to have 4 to carry the box, and the box itself can only carry 3. So even if you siege and someone's got 5 eggs, you can't just cram 5 eggs in there. And only people who can carry the box can put an egg in the box.
But I think
bananas.
I think there's also designated people that can carry the box.
Yeah,
so
they have to be designated.
Yeah,
in the same way
you
your
can't
banner,
just run in
in your desert.
in the same way that you have to
your
designate
desert box bearer.
banner bearers, and they're the only ones who can steal other factions' banners.
Yeah.
Sorry, son, you're American. You listen to Aussies here. I think it's part of the reason when you stay up past midnight to watch this.
Get all go all Austin Powers on him, but instead of like British speak Ochre Aussie.
Oh, mate.
Now, that's something we can do in Germany. If we switch to full Aussie, I'm like, what are they talking about? Was ist das?
Yeah.
That's
And then
secret code.
trying to make Stradeutsch, and turns out we're just speaking regular Deutsch.
Guten Tag, Freund, wie geht's?
Yeah. We're sitting there speaking Hochdeutsch like idiots, and then we think we're going to be real funny, being like, "Yeah, let's make Stradeutsch, Australian German." And so we're like, "All right, so Guten Tag is good day, yo. So G'day is obviously G'tag," and then just work from there. And then how's it going would be the gets instead of the gets, and then Gerald went and spoke with, I can't remember, oh, maybe it was at Mythodea, but...
It was at Mythodea, yeah. I went around to the Dunnies and, like, this woman's come up to this dude and she's just got, oh, guitar, forgets. I'm like,
yeah.
We just made that!
Man, I like they're just spreading so fast through Germany. We must be that popular.
I made that joke, but it didn't make me feel any better.
Oh, you do butcher the language, Americans.
Watch all your viewing numbers just drop.
Man.
Probably rise.
Hey, so we should probably talk more about Drachenfest, eh?
Yeah, we do this all the time, don't we? Yes.
This is Tim's Tangent Talks.
This is Tim's
Tangent Talks.
And we're back.
Your hair's showing.
Oh my.
Alright, so yes, I did ask about what your first day was like, because the very first day is when you get... So you've been twice now. How would you compare first time you went to the second time you went? Because there's always that, the very first time you do something, it's always the best thing in the world because you've never done it before. The second time you've gone now, you're actually a little bit more accustomed to it, a little bit more used to it.
I reckon you go first, because I think, yeah.
Yeah, so I had a different experience to you two the first time. So when we went, 2016, Cat and Package went together, and I just messaged someone on the Drachenfest page, or I put out a message like, hey guys, who can give me a lift? And this guy was like, yeah, you can stay at my place, and we'll go there, and do you want to stay in my tent? Yeah, cool, man. So I had a tent in Grey Camp, and I was kind of there on my own with this German bloke, and he introduced me to a bunch of other people. The first time I went, I think the main thing that made it better was it wasn't fucking stinking hot.
Yeah.
2018, when we went last year, we had the laser sun. It was like 33 degrees from 6 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night, sort of thing.
They were calling it laser sun again.
Yeah, it was ridiculously hot. So it's really hard to actually compare the two events that we went to when you've got that environmental factor that really suppressed the amount you could do during the day on the second one. So, like, I've got to say, like, the first one was a hell of a lot more enjoyable for me because I was able to do shit all the time. And, you know, it's always fun when you're, you know, exploring new things and finding new things. But the fact is, you're not going to find everything on the first time you go. If you go to Drachenfest one year, you're not going to see half the town. You're not going to see half of the other combatants because there's a good 12 other camps. The camps have got 200 to 600 players in them each.
Oh, at least. I reckon
I'd say
more.
some are in the thousands.
Some get to the thousands.
Like, Silver had about 1,100 apparently in 2018.
Yeah.
That's right. And the fact is, in every one of those camps, it's not just sleeping quarters either.
Yeah.
There's in Silver Camp 2018, it was only on like the last day I discovered there was a library. That was in my own camp.
Yeah.
The amount of things in your own camp you won't find is incredible. But if you don't, or you don't have the environment due to the weather to go out and find these things, you're not going to find a lot of things. So if you do go to Drachenfest, get around your camp and meet everybody you can. Get out of your camp and meet everybody you can. The first thing I tried to do, the second time I went to Drachenfest after just doing it coincidentally, the first time was, right, first day, I'm going to introduce myself to all my neighbours and make some mates. And then they'll give you, like, more things you can spread to, because then there's always a camp you can roll up to and say, oh, hello, Nachbarn, hello, neighbours, and they'll be like, hey, and you can get some banter, and they'll be like, why don't you go and do this if you're interested in that? We'll go do this. There's people there who have been going for donkey's years, and they know Drachenfest like the back of their hand. And I happened to run into one of these guys in 2016, and he also shaped my enjoyment of that experience. He'd been going since probably a bit after the whole thing started. And he was really nice and accommodating. He took me on a tour of the town and a lot of the camps who I had friends with. He introduced me to the avatars. if you're just going with a bunch of Aussies and you stay with your bunch of Aussies, you won't get an experience like that where you get somebody with an insider knowledge. You've got to go there, and if you do go with your group of Aussies, or if you're American, if you go with your group of Americans,
Be willing to ditch them.
Yeah.
be willing to ditch them. Like,
And also,
fuck
if
you
you can
guys, I'm
cover your
going to meet
accent,
some
more people will
Germans.
talk to you.
Yes, if you try to speak more like you are German, but you are speaking English just for the fun of it.
Oh, no.
Oder du lernst Deutsch.
Yeah.
Duolingo is
Actually,
really
that's
nice,
probably-
easy.
Good now.
Genau.
No.
Probably not entirely true. It probably depends on what group of people you work with, because we had far less problems, but we were also part of the Grand Expedition when we went.
Oh no, like almost everyone I met spoke really good English.
Yeah.
Better
It's
than
more
us.
just the effort. It's more just like the effort of like, I don't know, I don't like to travel if I can't at least say some really basic like, hey, how are you? Sorry, I'm an idiot and I can't speak your language, but like, can you help point me in the direction of this or whatever?
Next
Like,
group Deutsch.
Getag vergets, ich bin ein Dummkopf. Is that...
I think my
Es tut
favorite.
mir leid. Ich bin ein Dummkopf.
It tut mir leid.
I think my
Ich
favorite
kann
was
nicht
your,
Sprache Deutsch.
So for me, the very,
mein Arschloch bitte.
Oh,
Ich bin ein großes Dreckscheppingsgesicht.
the very first time I went there, in fact, probably the second day, there was a group of people within our camp, and they were actually cooking up spit, and it was a pig, like the full pig, everything. And we saw it, and it was starting on the start of that day. We've seen it, just going, oh man, that'd be fantastic. Didn't think anything of it other because we were still setting up our camp and stuff like that. And it comes towards like late at night and it's dark and stuff like that, and they've already served it up, and they invite us over. And we go, oh, geez, I'm coming over for some roast pig on spit for sure. So we've sat down and started eating some of their meat and stuff like that, and we're all in a circle, but they're starting to talk German. And they sort of just, because they were already in the middle of a conversation when we sort of rocked up, so they're just talking German. So it was like German, Scheiße. German, Scheiße. So I've just gone, is it really bad that probably the only German I know happens to be Scheiße? That's the best joke in the world. Then they realised what was going on and started speaking in English and stuff like that.
which is really good of them that they switched to English for you.
Oh, that's what I actually found that a lot. They
Yeah.
actually were very accommodating.
Yeah,
I
or
had
find a
some-
translator.
Yeah, I had some people that were nice enough that like even if they were mid-conversation, if I walked up, they'd switch to English so that I could understand what was going on. I'm like, oh, it's really nice. Like,
Well, as I said in the story I have about being captured in the orc camp, when we got killed, one of the orcs basically sat with us when we were dead and translated the whole scenario for us and the whole ritual that they put together.
To be fair, that would have been in black speech, not German.
Whichever
Still-
way they translated it.
I'm sorry, do
Come
you
on.
speak black speech?
I've been learning black speech on Duolingo.
That's some bullshit.
What makes you think they don't have black speech?
I've
on
just got, I've just
Yeah,
got,
like-
Because I know.
I would just use Google Translate myself.
Google Translate does black speech?
But getting back to like the language barrier, I know our first time at the Drachenfest, there was a massive fight that was happening in our like square in Silver Camp. You were out.
Oh,
He was
Yeah,
KO.
because I was sitting at the hospital, and there'd been a guy that had been kind enough to translate for me, like pretty much everything, because I knew pretty much no German at that point.
oh, is this ski guy?
Yeah, Maximilian.
Maximilian.
I can't remember.
What's his character's name?
I either remember one or the other. I can never remember both at the same time.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was like a screaming fight happening between the Silver Avatar and like the leader of one of the groups because they'd been killing magical creatures. And everyone's like sitting there like, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, this is like, and he gave the context for it. And he's like, and now he said this, now she said this, and now he said this. And then he like went out really like, and he's like, and so he was trying to give me like a play-by-play as they were fighting, and everyone was super shocked because like the Silver Avatar does not have screaming fights with people, like,
Yeah.
and people don't argue. No, she can yell at people. People don't argue back.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you don't talk back to an avatar.
Yeah,
like
she doesn't take that shit.
no, like you don't talk to a god basically. Like you can talk to, you can't argue with. I think that's pretty fair.
You definitely don't yell at them. You raise your voice, you're in
Yeah.
trouble. Unless you're desperately trying to get their attention.
Yeah.
and that attention is to be like, can I get your autograph? It better be positive if you're raising your voice.
Yeah. But yeah, I found that like people were really accommodating.
Yeah.
But it also created some interesting things. Like I know because I was a healer, and I was healing some lovely gentleman that had popped on a stretcher in front of me. And again, German was horrible. And he realised halfway through healing that I was using magic. And his character was like, absolutely no magic at all. Like, so he like started screaming, flipped himself off the stretcher onto the ground and was trying to like scoot back away from me because he's like, no magic, no magic. Like, which was again like something that I hadn't thought to sort of ask or talk about at all because again, swordcraft culture, like a heal's a heal, no one cares where it comes from. Like,
I could go so much into depth.
No, let's not.
Okay, but like my point is that like I loved that was an experience that like he's like I know like I hate magic, so like you're lucky I've let you bandage me up. You can't use magic on me.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty much the interaction that we sort of had like with our like half garbled thing and his friend translating from the stretcher next door. Like
For me,
my story based on that particular thing too was we were getting sieged in the gold camp when I was there. And it was one of those kind of stalemates, sort of, not stalemates, but it was right at the start. So that was when the siege weapons were coming through and the gates were still closed and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'd get them over the gate. And, you know, you think the siege weapons are not going to hit you. Of course, they've got an onager, which is firing multiple shots at once. And I'm not paying attention. And all of a sudden, just at the corner of my eye, I see this shot come from something. I have no idea where it came from. It's just like, holy shit. And your reaction, because I had a shield, it was only a buckler, I blocked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it was just instant reaction. Yeah. Black. And I blocked it. Because of being there, I've gone, I don't care if I blocked that, you know, that would have still just broken my hand.
Yeah.
So I just basically, because I had it on the shoulder too when I did it and stuff like that. So I went, all right, I was right next to the hospital. I went, you know what? I'm right next to the hospital. I've just been shot with essentially a cannon. I'm just going to tell them exactly what happened. And then the person who looked after me and started healing me got this patch of fake skin / bandages and started picking bits of plastic out representing the bone that had just been crushed by the actual cannon.
Nice.
I thought that was fantastic.
The healers go to massive lengths for little details at Drachenfest, and it's I mean, they probably don't I mean, what I found in the couple of years that we've been, they don't expect people to really get psyched in appreciating it the way that I did when I saw it happen in a couple of instances, because we haven't got anything like that here yet.
That's why I told you to get rid of healing magic.
No, because I've seen some.
I thought we were talking about
Drachenfest.
Shh.
Like I've seen some really intense magic going on as well.
Yeah. Oh look, we've had a better conversation about this. It's about getting rid of the really crappy sort of quick 30-second chance type thing.
No, I've seen some wonderful like lights and sounds and things that move and like people who just make such intense props and then do really intense role play that goes with it. And it's also amazing watching people like do that in German and they come over to you like, you speak English. Let me do it in English. It's like, how do you like...
Yeah.
Because like, gotta admit, most of your chants aren't going to be in the sort of normal English you speak. It's going to be in some sort of altered thing. And they just transition so smoothly between them. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. But I really like as well that after a lot of the big battles and stuff where the healers have been really busy taking care of the wounded, they'll actually look exhausted. Like,
yeah.
And I think it is because they're putting in so much into that role play.
Part of the reason why I wish Karen and Anthony would be here too, because Karen was one of the healers when we went. So she has a lot of experience from that side of the things too, because she went into that part heavily. So yeah, it would have been good to have that particular aspect too going on about this conversation, but can't always get what you want.
Yeah, I know my
if you're listening, Karen and Anthony, we wish you were here.
Yeah, I know my first Drachenfest, I spent most of my time at the hospital. I busted my knee 2 months before we went overseas, so I couldn't walk around.
You couldn't walk around.
Yeah, I had a walking stick and like couldn't go very far, so I just planted myself at the hospital most days and went on very small walks just outside the walls when there were fights.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So I got to see a lot of that going on, and there were times where I'm like, oh, I'm useless, but I can sit here and like supply bandages and fresh blood and
one of the things that I liked when we were doing the battle, especially the final battles when I noticed it the most, there was this old woman going around. I couldn't guess her age, but it was pretty advanced. She wasn't there for the combats and whatnot, but she was just wearing a typical medieval dress with a straw-spun hat type thing, with a basket, and she had like bottles of water, and she's just going around handing out water. And I was just like, that was the best thing in the world.
And there's so much of that as well that like we noticed as well. People that either like when they die, they just go out handing out water, or they straight up they're not there to fight. They're just there to hand out or spray water on you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People pay for a player ticket to look after other players.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And seeing like some of the ways that they like wrap them up, and like the girl.
That's what I'm saying. It's also because they do it in character too.
Yeah, there's a girl that she'd like gotten, you know, those like pressurized, you pump and spray.
Yep.
She'd gotten one of those, and she'd like covered the edges so it looks like a barrel.
Yeah.
So she was like pumping a barrel to like spray, because obviously that you're there and it's hot, it's the middle of the day. So she was just like spraying people down with water.
For me, the difference between 2016 and 2018, though, to go back to the original question, I found Drachenfest itself actually kind of isolating. Because like Kat said, her leg was busted and her range was very limited. So I was kind of left to my own devices, which led to some good fun things, but not as much as what I think might have been. And because I found it a bit isolating, still getting my grounding in 2016, I've spent a lot of time back at our tent, which was in the overflow. And in the overflow, we actually ended up spending a lot of time with this brother and sister, and the brother had brought his little daughter who, I don't think she even won then.
Yeah.
Little Mousy, she won by then.
She was walking around a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, and Malty and Benty,
I think she was like 2 or 3.
and they were, no, she's like 4 now.
I thought she was 5 or 6 now.
No.
It doesn't
but
matter.
yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
She was about 1-2 years ago, and now she's about 5 or 6.
Spend a lot of time down at their camp, and they introduced us to the Swiss, who had been pushed into the overflow out of Grey because Grey ran out of room.
And they had one of the really good medieval tents.
Yeah, and they and so did Malty and Benty, who had originally meant to be in blue or black or something. I don't know. They were meant to be in another camp, so we're all from other camps, and then there was a pirate from blue up over back to it. He had his own, it was just him, and he had his own amazing setup. We were kind of like peeking in his tent, and we all kind of had this little community, and I felt better grounded in there. And I'll be honest, I spent a lot of time sitting down talking shit with these Swiss and these Germans, hearing their stories about Drachenfest and then getting their guidance. Kind of like what Gerald said, talking to your neighbours. And initially it was just, I was going down the hill to them, because they were like meters away from us down the hill, to be like, sorry, can I, and I always preface it being like, oh, can I just, as an ignorant foreigner, can I ask another question? And they'd be like, ask as many questions as you want, it's fine.
Oh,
and
they were really good. We love talking about this shit.
Yeah. And then, and then they'd give answers or whatever, and then, we get talking, and we'd be swapping stories and that, and then, we got to know the Swiss and that, and they set up a little marquee as well, a canvas marquee, and we had this communal eating area, and we'd all kind of meet and hang out. And then I think it was the second last night, we all sat around, and I think you were there for it too in 2016, when we all got drunk. And
if I was there, I wouldn't remember that.
yeah. We got really soused, and it was really amazing. And these guys have become lifelong friends for the three of us since 2016. We keep in touch with them. Tim, one of the Swiss, he came with us and camped with us in 2018 this year.
Nice.
And it was really, really good.
Convinced everyone he was from Tassie.
Yeah, because
good.
He was saying that he didn't want to play a character that spoke German. He wanted to push his role play and play someone that only spoke English.
Nice.
So he did that, and everyone's like, but he sounds different from you. We're like, oh, he's from Tasmania. In that classic Aussie way, where we just spin bullshit off on the fly. Everyone's like, yeah, from Tassie. And he started. We made him an honorary Australia because he spun some bullshit, and we all jumped on it, and he was right on it anytime, and he was yeah, he's yeah, 100%. And that was just. That was a whole other layer of
Aussie spin bullshit.
I like spiders.
But 2018 was a bit better. Because Gerald's right, the sun was sort of crippling at a lot of stages.
Laser sun.
Yeah. But
when it wasn't,
it was great. And even when the sun was pretty bad, I don't know. maybe it was because I was with these guys as well, and we had Tim, who would kind of act as a translator if we needed one, or just maybe feeling more grounded, having familiarity with it.
Yeah.
But I found a lot more things than I did in 2016. And you're right, like I went to that first one, and even though I came back with all those sort of like really mixed kind of feelings, I did think it was the best until I went last year. And then last year I'm like, no, the second time was the best Drachenfest that I've done. And without a doubt, the best festival LARP that I've been to. 2016 is probably a fourth. There's a couple of Swordcraft quests in there that top it for me.
Yeah.
I know last year I discovered a lot more nighttime stuff that happened. Because the sun was so bad, I spent a lot of the day taking my stretcher out to the forest and sleeping in the forest.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
And that meant
You're not meant to go in the forest.
Aren't you?
they did put over that announcement at some point.
Yeah, they told people to stop going in the forest.
Okay, fair enough. Don't know why.
Yeah, you're also not supposed to take wood from there.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It's because it's
Yeah,
a national park.
But I spent like most of my days napping, and then would get up at night and do more stuff, which meant that like I was walking from town one day and I got captured by some orcs and had a great experience with that. Got protected by a group and then held hostage by that group and then like taken to their camp to get fixed up, and then got told I wasn't allowed to leave that camp. I'm like, I just want to go back to my camp, and they're like, we'll escort you back to your camp. Until then, you must sit here with the healers where we can guard you in case you're a spy. And I'm like,
When we
It's very elaborate.
when we were at Drachenfest, because we were in the gold camp. The gold camp was essentially, other than the green camp, we were pretty much the furthest away from town.
that's the camp that I got to.
Yeah, there you go. So we had to, if you wanted to go into the centre of town, it's not just going just for a quick walk, because it is a short distance, but you're also going up that hill for starters.
And also, like, town is quite big. Like,
It is,
I
yeah.
managed to get lost in town more times than I'd like to admit.
Yes, because especially if you go out the other way and suddenly you're into the top camps and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
And look,
I never got lost in Aldreduck, just saying.
I've
I know
got-
Gerald didn't either.
I've got no sense of direction, okay? Like, I'm also shorter than you two. You two can see over stuff.
If you get lost, you just keep walking. Eventually, you'll find something you recognise, or you'll
Sure.
find something really cool, and it'll
That
be like,
doesn't
"I'm
mean-
not lost. I'm at this cool thing. I'm in the colony, and I've been given lots of shots. I'm not lost. I'm drunk."
Yeah. Oh, Colony. Man, Colony is wicked fun. Although, and Colony was the one thing that was flipped. I had an amazing time in Colony in 2016. 2018, I had a garbage time in Colony.
Yeah.
So Colony's like this gypsy camp that's like on the edge of town. So if you go to Drachenfest, on the edge of town there'll be like a little like fenced off area with lots of bunting. It'll look like a cool little medieval village. Usually there's a little bit happening during the day, but at night there's a whole lot of performers, there's some gambling, there's a few bars in there. It's really cool, like little nice sub-town.
Some fun little games. It kind of
It
reminds
might
me of
be
Carnival.
Yeah, you might have packages experience, you might not, who knows.
I don't know what it was in 2018, because like I said, the first time I was there, one of the highlights for me was Colony.
I think it's also-
2016 was, But Colony, I was like, I've got to go back to Colony in 2018, and I made a point of going back there. Maybe I just hyped it up
Which
too
night
much
did
for
you go
myself.
to?
But I think it's also
It
how
can
much you
happen,
I think I went
interact.
the second night.
No, you probably have to wait later in the week.
Yeah, I think
Everything's
it's also how
sort
much
of
you interact.
ramped
It's
Oh,
up.
like-
no, the second night Colony ran. Because it's only open like 3 of the nights. Yeah,
It's sort of like, they're sort of like, we're here, but we're not for you.
yeah. It's like when those lanterns get lit. Because
Oh,
they
yeah.
string lanterns up too. I have to duck under those things, Come on, gypsies. Consider us string beans.
Trying to keep the Dutch
I
out.
find that
The
interesting,
Dutch,
I
yeah.
find that interesting about, because I've only been once, so I don't have a
To Colony or?
no to Drachenfest in general. So I don't have a reflection of going first time and going afterwards. Because it would be completely different for me now if I go to Drachenfest, because originally when we went, I went with the Grand Expedition. And at the time that we went, it was like 40, 50 odd people, and I've gone with 7 Aussies as well. So I already had a base of people who I could rely on, who I knew, who I could be comfortable with, that made it so much easier to transition into it. Especially a lot of the English guys too, because it's a very English camp, made it just so much easier. We caught up with a whole heap of them before we even came to Drachenfest. So it was a good chance to actually get to know a few of them. Some of them we picked up on the bus on the way through. But it gave us a chance to sort of get to know a few people before even Drachenfest, before we even got to Drachenfest. And it was something like 40, 50 of us in that camp.
Because there used to be French people in the Grand Expedition when it used to run.
I don't know. The very first time was basically just English and us Aussies.
Okay.
And a couple of others. Some of the Israeli people, was it like about 4 or 5 Israeli guys?
Yeah.
People who came over. Especially one of them called Tiny, who was like almost 7 feet tall.
Yeah, we've seen photos of him. He's enormous. We've seen him standing next to someone 6 foot tall and like...
Yeah, exactly.
And he's built!
He's built, yeah,
If he
absolutely.
gets hold of this footage, he's... Tiny, you scary man. I haven't met you. I don't want to.
Speaking of the Grand Expedition, though, it stopped running officially, but a lot of those Israelis who were going, they were like, well, we still want to go and we still want to do a thing. So they made a group called the Morning Star that started off as a base of those Israelis who were going in the Grand Expedition, and now it's a good 20 or so Israelis who go as that group.
Plus the other like nationalities that join them too. Like they've got a few Nords. The ones we met in Hanover.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they were in the Morning Star, and their group leader or whatever, the tall guy, had the shaved head, kind of like mid-range and almost musical voice, and a really cool accent. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
The beautiful one, yeah.
Yeah, but I think as well, you have a very different experience if you're hanging out with a bunch of other foreigners
Yes.
at Drachenfest from what you have if you're like there by yourself and you're like, well, got to interact with some people. Like, I think you get to see two very different.
If you don't go to these things and don't interact with other people, you're not doing it right.
No, but like, because I know I had a very different experience, probably 2016 versus 2018. Because 2018 we had sort of our own mini group within Silver Camp.
We had that 7 Aussies, all camped in together, plus another 2 that were driving in every day. And Slocum was in Green Camp and visited regularly.
I think part of me prefers just being by myself because it forced me into a lot more opportunities. Like, it's great having that comfort factor, and like if I could swap them over, I probably would have done that because I would have preferred to be like in the center of everything, but sort of like have a bunch of people I know. But I know my first experience was just feel like, well, I can't do anything, so I'm gonna have to have as much like social interaction as I can, and I can't really see stuff. And I got a lot of really great interactions like with a bunch of different people from a bunch of different places as well. I made one trip into town by myself.
Yeah.
It's a very long walk. But it meant that I got to meet a few people. Some poor gentleman offered to escort me back to camp, and he was another nobleman, and I think he sort of like offered me his arm, like, the lady will take my arm and I'll walk her back to camp. And I was like, oh, thank fuck, I need so much help. Like, because you watch him do that, like, oh, okay.
She's being for real, not she?
Yeah, and like halfway there, he's like, are you okay? I'm like, no, not even a little bit.
But, like, one of the things I found, though, is that we were still willing to just ditch each other this year.
Yeah.
Which, like, I think worked out fine, because we also knew that, like, we'd come back, and even if there wasn't anyone there, someone would probably turn up at some point. And we also got to know our neighbours pretty well,
and that's
which was really, really good. And I think that's the one thing, like, you've already said it, that, like, you made an active point to do it. I just kind of fall into it, have fallen into it each time, like 2016, just because I needed to ask questions, and then they introduced me and that, but then just like happened to naturally interact with neighbours around us and that, and and that gave us some positive interactions and stuff. It is one of the key things. Either go out of your way to get to know your neighbours, or if you see an opportunity to role play with them, do it. Because getting to know your neighbours, Gerald hit nail on the head. Like, it makes it so much easier. Wherever you camped, Overflow or fucking whatever colour camp, if you're even camped in town, I bet it's a huge advantage.
On that particular note, actually, too, don't treat it as in-game time is the only time you should visit these people. In fact...
Go and visit them before and after.
We ended up throwing someone in someone else's car to get from Drachenfest to Hanover. Well, you went in someone else's car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, as I'm sitting here being like, who went with some? Oh, it was me. Yeah, I went with some girl that I met the night before
Yeah,
in the
pretty
next
much, like-
camp, and she wasn't even camped with those guys.
Yeah, it's like it's
They were
really
like,
great.
"Oh, she'll give you a lift."
Yeah, look, I found like
That's the other thing about like meeting your neighbours. When we were on those last sort of nights and we're going, shit, we don't have space for everyone in the car. What are we going to do? I was like, half of my job was like, first I went to the neighbours. Is anyone going past Hanover? No. Do you know anyone who would? And you just get introduced to more and more people until you find someone who is, and you meet a whole lot of people. I was having
And
a
we
great
were
drink with
saying
this
with,
English teacher until I got called away to deal with an incident.
Let's not talk
is
about
it the
that.
incident I
Wait,
know about?
which
Yeah.
incident?
The blue incident.
The blue one.
Blue incident.
I'll tell you later.
You've got everyone on channel most
Huh?
go, what are you talking about?
Ask me about the blue incident
Blue incident.
Woke up in where did you wake up?
in Ukraine.
Oh!
What?
Oh! Yeah, I remember. Remember being told. Do we want to tell the story without dropping a name?
I think we should
Yeah,
tell the
don't drop
story
a name,
without
don't
dropping a
drop a
name.
name.
Yeah.
Especially because I really like that it shows the Maltesers'
Oh, so
sense of humour.
So I was out out hunting for a lift for package, and I eventually ended up with this crew who their leader was an English teacher. So I was
By
like,
hunting for a lift
great,
for
lots
package,
of
you mean getting
English. So having a good chat, I was able to talk without having to drop in any German I knew, which was difficult after you get used to it. And then one of the neighbours who had actually introduced me to these groups come around and gone, your friend is not doing so well. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a shame. Oh, well. And then I kind of like disregarded it because I was having a whole lot of fun. And they came back and they were like, no, he's really not doing well. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I went over there and he slumped over a chair and pale and
Puddle of
and they're like,
blue vomit next to him.
he'd been drinking,
The coloured mead.
I know, it wasn't mead. We were with the
Oh.
Valkovian Circle.
Oh.
They had this Polish vodka they'd mixed this Bavarian lolly with that was blue.
Yeah.
It had a very strong blue dye in this lolly. It was a really good drink. It was a
Sounds
really
good.
nice game, but he drank too much from the bottle. And so, yeah, they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And I'm like, well, you call the Maltesers. There's nothing we can do for him. And so the Maltesers, who are like our sort of St. John's Ambulance or Medico 1 or whatever we have at our events, they come along and, you know, they do their assessment. They're pretty blasé about, you know, oh, he's drunk. So they
Australia would be a different kettle of fish.
yeah, so they strapped him to a thing,
Gurney.
yeah, strapped him to a gurney and hauled him off to a recovery area they've got. And he wakes up sometime in the night and he tells us about this later on. He's woken up during the night. He doesn't know where he is. It's panic.
Because he's woken up still strapped down to this gurney, so
Yeah.
he's really panicking.
There's a
like-
Malteser there and he's like, where am I? Malteser doesn't miss a beat and says, you're in Ukraine.
He had a full panic attack.
Yeah.
He would've-
Because he thought he was in the Ukraine.
He thought he'd gotten that drunk.
That's
that he, like,
hilarious.
yeah. Oh, no, I think my favourite line from that night was that, I don't want to die.
I don't want to die here.
Where was that? Was he in the tent?
No, that was next to the tent.
he
but
was like on-
sitting
he
in the
was-
Stargazer, like,
I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about now. All right, I want to have a quick break because I need to go to the toilet.
And we'll be
What if
back
we don't
after a
break?
message
What if you
from
just
our
leave it
sponsor.
with us?
yeah.
Yeah, all right, you guys
Don't
keep
you
talking.
trust us?
I'm just going to go to the toilet. You guys keep talking.
Oh,
Actually, you guys, there's actually been 2 questions you can really quickly answer while I am.
or Gerald
Quickly.
could tell his Nick Spricks.
No, we'll answer the questions.
And this is really
Questions,
quick, these
yeah,
are
we'll
really
do
quick-
that.
these
We'll
are
answer
really
them while
quick
Tim's
questions.
not here, so we can implicate him with the
The
answers.
first one is, how do you pick a camp for Drachenfest? Which is an easy one to answer.
Oh.
And the other one is that
Mm,
how much costs are involved in going.
I'd say...
Whoa, hang on. Camp or cost?
go to the camp
Costs.
first.
Costs.
Camp,
I feel
camp,
like
no, camp will take longer. Cost
yeah,
is easy.
Cost is
Do
easy.
costs,
I'd
yeah.
say about 3,000.
Well, if we're talking about like
It depends.
as opposed to like what you can do on a bare minimum and
Yeah.
what we've actually done.
fly in, fly out.
Yeah, if you did a fly in, fly out, yeah, 3.
3. You could do it for 2.
Yeah.
You could, you'd be really pushing it,
Yeah.
and you might starve.
Pack
And
with starving.
that's only if you're doing Drachenfest too.
Yeah, that's
this
what.
is-
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
saying
just
if it's
Drachenfest.
just Drachenfest.
But if you're going overseas and you're doing Drachenfest, and if you're like me and go, I'm not going to go over there and do Drachenfest and not Mythodia, and so you do Mythodia as well, and you go, well, I'm going to Germany. I'm not just going to go to these LARP events. I'm going to go to some German cities like we did, Cat. And I'm going to buy some cool armor while I'm here and eat some good food and drink a shitload of beer. I spent $8,000 all up.
Yeah, so
That's pretty good for $8,000.
I know.
I feel like
we got dirt cheap flights. Though.
Yeah, I was gonna say our flights were like
1,060 return.
Yeah,
but we spent a lot of time in Vietnam.
yeah. But like Vietnam and China Southern are really good because they do give you generally the cheapest flights, and they also give you 2 bags with 40 kilos.
We got a student deal through that. So if you're
2
over
bags
30,
each,
you don't get that deal.
2 bags. Each bag is 21 kilos.
Each-
Don't tell
each-
people you get 2 bags 40 kilos.
No. Each,
2 bags,
I said-
40 kilos all up. You can have up to 32 kilos
Yeah.
in a bag, though.
Oh.
I did say 40 between them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, China
because-
Southern is specifically the max is still the 21 standard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it does depend on. Yeah, because basically for the workers' backs, because no one can be lifting 40 kilos.
But they don't think about that.
I can lift 40 kilos.
Cool, do it every day. 12 hours a day.
I spent about $5,000 when I went.
So you can
Yeah.
spend between 3 and 8 or more. I mean,
Or
there's
less.
There's
Yeah,
no
I
real upper
think-
limit.
I think between 2
There's
and
no
8.
real lower limit,
Yeah,
technically.
typically.
I feel like 2,000 is probably your lower limit, and I think probably
It also
8,000 is
depends on a lot
comfortable.
of factors. Your ticket pricing, like when we went to Drachenfest at that particular time, it was around about $2,500 for airplane tickets.
Oh, fuck. I thought you meant... I was like...
Yeah, Drachenfest tickets. Oh, yeah, Drachenfest tickets are staggered in the pricing as well. So the earlier you buy your ticket, the cheaper the
The
ticket
cheaper it
is.
comes, that's right. Yeah, we did do that too
yeah.
for Thingo because it made sense.
Yeah, but in the scheme of things, it doesn't make a huge difference.
No.
But then if you're trying to pinch your pennies, it makes a difference.
It does,
It's the
yeah.
difference between like a couple of solid nights out drinking.
Yeah.
Because like fuck
Well,
me, it's cheap there.
Oh, yeah.
We chucked in something like I can't remember if it's £500 or €500 or something 500 mark towards the Grand Expedition to help them purchase all the tents and stuff like that we actually had for the place.
Actually, that's something really good. We hired tents when we went over as well, which is amazing because it meant we got to be in the camp, which is something I really enjoyed, being in the actual camp rather than in the overflow. And also being able to have a tent and not have to set it up or pack it down. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit, it was like, it was so good. And it wasn't that expensive either for what it was.
Yeah, once you split it between the people, it was really good. At Drachenfest, we got a yurta because that was all that was available. If you're booking a tent for Drachenfest, get on it early because they sell out quick.
Yeah.
Mythodea, we got 3 2-man tents.
Yeah.
They were still pretty roomy 2-man tents too. Like, I could stand up and only had to, like, bend my head a little too. They were
Yeah.
tall and roomy.
But
Plenty
yeah.
of room
It's a
for
good
me.
way of doing it, just getting it basically pre-set up for you and then...
They were
pre-packed
fantastic.
and-
And they ask what day you're arriving.
Yep.
So it is set up for you.
They're obviously used to it, obviously they must do it a lot there.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, how many tents has he got? Like 50?
You got tons of tents.
Yeah, he's got a...
It does sound like heaven, doesn't it?
Yeah, but like that's what they do for a living, is they travel around to
I'll be
festivals.
honest though, because our yurt was set up when we got to Drachenfest.
And they come around and check and make sure all your guy ropes are
Yeah, like every day they
standing
come
up.
around checking
Yeah.
Oh,
everything.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making sure
Nice.
that everything's upright.
But for me, because like there hasn't been like a festival I haven't been to where I haven't had to, you know, at the least pack down. Standing there watching them like pack down, I kept being like, "Hey, do you want some help? Like, I'm happy to help. I don't mind, you know."
that being
And
said-
they were like, "Nah, don't," because what the guy said, he said like, "Nah, don't," because I need to see if he can do this right. And I was just like, because he had a new employee there, yeah, and I was like, yeah.
Because they took them down like, what, 10 minutes or something? Like, watching them once...
Mythodea, they were quicker.
Oh, yeah, but Mythodea, they're smaller tents. Like,
Yeah, but there was 3 different tents, whereas Drachenfest, it was just the one.
The Apollonius told me about
point
them
is
putting
how
them
quickly
up.
they can, like...
Oh, yeah.
It was just this one girl in the sun
Yeah.
putting him up and... Do you need help with that? I have to do it on my own.
Yeah. No, but like, hiring a tent is definitely...
Hiring a tent,
like,
yeah, definitely.
It's way better than trying to transport your own, and yeah, as I said, that thing of like not having to set it up or pack it down, like especially if you like fly in and go straight to the Drachenfest and you're there with like jet lag or whatever, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, that's a highly recommendation, which I've done on my other videos about going to LARPs. Arrive earlier for a few days and probably get yourself a hotel room somewhere and shut up you.
Look, like I don't get jet lag that badly, probably because I don't sleep that much to start with. But I really enjoy having a hotel like the night before and the night after, just so you can have have a shower, have a sleep in a decent bed. Before and after, like they're just nice
There is a
things.
big like it also depends who you are too. Like I said, when I talked about my Italy laps, the very first Italy lap that I went to, the day I arrived was the day of the lap. I had like a 20-hour gap in between. That was about the most I had, of which half of that was travelling to the actual lap itself. So after a 20-hour flight, in a flight I really couldn't sleep all that well in because you're sitting in a really tight spot, going straight into a lap where they're simulating a 3-day event over a two-day weekend. In blow-up mattresses, in really small tents, in a shift of sleeping. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, and that's a big thing as well. If you can get as much sleep as you can before, so you can sleep deprive yourself during and get involved in nighttime stuff, like...
It just means you can appreciate the game more and do more and not be just whacked. You'll get wrecked by the end of it.
Oh yeah, but that's fine.
Exactly, yeah. You should be getting wrecked by the end of it. If you're not wrecked by the end of it, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
One thing I figured out for 2018 that I didn't figure out in 2016 is that I could just stay up and involve myself in everything late. And it didn't matter because the camp was run by a lot of middle-aged or older people. They're in their late 30s, 40s, and sometimes, early 50s. And they like a sleep in. And for a lot of them, this is part of their holiday that they get during the year, and so they're sleeping in. So it was like, well, I'm out of my time zone anyway, so I might as well be up, when they get up, because that'll be when things start happening for my camp. And then I'll just keep going until things shut down, which is like whenever.
See, that's something like...
whenever. Like...
That's something next year I'd really like to try and keep my Australian sleeping schedule, because they do really...
Why?
Just shut up and listen, maybe you find out. Because they do really like having people to watch the gates all night, because you do have, like, orcs attacking in the middle of the night and all sorts of things. So, like, I just think it'd be easier to
I have to say, when I told my orc story, the orc story starts at the orc attack on Black Camp, which is right next to us, at 11 p.m.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I see many orcs out before midnight, which is something that's really great. Like,
they're generally not out in the morning. Like, they won't start until about midday at the most.
Yeah.
A quick question in relation...
we didn't do camp picking.
We
didn't
just
cover
a
that
quick
question.
question in relation to that particular question, which is probably just relevant about the actual sleeping gear too. Did you rent most of that and just bring your sleeping bags?
No,
we just brought our own camp bed. Did you bring your own camp bed?
Yeah.
That big thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I brought a little mattress thing.
Oh.
And then
Tim had the big
yeah,
fold.
Tim had the big fold out and I had a fucked up back. So he was like the coolest dude. He's like, yeah, no worries, just use my thing.
I took a stretcher and a sleeping roll because my back is naffed. And my stretcher broke partway through Drachenfest. I'm also allergic to grass, so I couldn't sleep on the ground.
Ooh.
So I needed that stretcher that's just got like a bit of a distance. And then with the deal, we were lucky enough that we had a floor in the tent, so that wasn't so bad.
I just went back to using my Gamson as a bed.
Yeah, we know what you're like.
Dude, it's so easy. You lay it down
you have a
underneath
stretcher
you.
and you sleep in the dirt, like...
Yeah, no, but...
No one is asking about your sleeping experience.
No. Save yourself...
You're a freak.
Save yourself the
Yeah.
weight and the room. Get yourself a nice Gambeson, right? And like...
Just get a lightweight
Yeah,
sleeping
and
bag.
it's one of the... It only has to be one of the 3/4 ones. If you get a full length one, then your feet will be warm too. But what you do is you just lay it out...
Chainmail pillow?
No, better. What you do is you get your tunic, your tabard or surcoat or whatever, and you roll it up and you sit that just below where the neck is, and then you fold the arms over the top of that, and it should be just enough if you're a broad-shouldered person like me to prop you up if you like to sleep on your side, like I do. So you've got this like layer that insulates you against your heat being sapped out through the ground. And then, you've got the sleeves and your tabard or whatever acting as a pillow. That saves you the space on taking a stretcher.
Do you also remember in 2016 where your Gambeson never got dry?
Yeah, I do.
It was constantly wet.
Yeah, and?
Damn.
And if you don't like that feeling, get a sleeping roll. It's not hard.
Yeah.
They don't weigh that much. They don't take up that much space.
Or you could just do what I did and put clothes over the top of your Gambeson like a bedsheet.
I'm not going to disagree with Package. If you're somebody who can usually sleep okay, unlike myself, unlike Kat, you should just be able to take the most rudimentary, bare bones sleeping gear. Or like what I did in 2016, you get there and you just buy it while you're there. What? And you'll just wear yourself out so much. It doesn't matter what you're sleeping on. You probably won't even sleep in your own bed.
What?
Paper.
The paper.
Just a bit of paper. Now you've just got attention to yourself.
Yep. It's cool. Thanks, package.
You were pointing here, and you're like, you passed me that, and I'm like, you want me to?
All right, let's go into the other
pass me
questions.
John's
How do you pick a camp?
How do you pick a camp?
How did you pick a camp?
What suited our characters?
Well, yeah. So when we went in 2016, we were taking pre-established characters. And those pre-established characters obviously had a backstory and a world and stuff. Drachenfest is set up in that the Dragonlands are a world that you portal into or walk into or sail into. You come to by either mundane or magical means. So it's meant to encourage you bringing in an existing character and it being an event that you can continue to build and develop that character story. It's another adventure off somewhere with no consequence to your perhaps main and ongoing story. So because we had those established characters, I think yours was new just before Drachenfest 2016.
Yeah, I had some pre-established stuff that I'd planned for a game that stopped running. So I just brought all of that character into Drachenfest.
And I brought an existing character. And so when I was looking around at the different camps, trying to decide where we're going to go, I found that they have different virtue sections, like what things that they sort of prioritize. Yeah. So like Grey
on their website, you can find
wisdom and
magic
knowledge
and shit like that.
So it's like learning and wisdom and stuff.
For Wissen und Weisheit.
What the hell does that mean?
For knowledge and wisdom?
For wisdom.
Yeah.
Weisheit is knowledge?
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
if I'm wrong, correct me. I don't remember.
Ich nicht
spricht Deutsch!
Yeah.
Okay, can we go into that story?
And then...
We'll get there.
Yeah, and then I mean, I don't know if that's why you picked... No, you picked Grey because someone you knew.
I picked Grey because I could sleep on the floor in someone's tent.
Because Gerald found a ride.
Yeah, but I went...
That's the same way Nathan actually got into green because I helped him out with a friend of mine there.
And I went silver adamantly because I'm like, well, my character is, truth and honour and justice and all of this. And I'm like, and all of those lined up perfectly. Yeah, that made me angry.
What was that?
In and out of character. And then that all lined up with Silver Camp. 2016, I was coming into camp and my section commander in the Sturmlanzer Storm Lance or Storm Pike, Bron, who is now the leader of the Sturmlanzer and well earned too, he was coming out with a few of the other Sturmlanzer and he was like, oh, we're going to... I can't do his voice, but it's hugely deep and like talking to a giant German teddy bear. And that's kind of what he looks like too. Until he puts his armor on and... Anyway. Yeah. And he's like, we're going to kill some orcs. Do you want to join us? I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm bored as shit, because I've done nothing all day. And so we just, met him at the gate and we're heading out and we're looking for an orc and we see these pirates holding up this wolf person thing. I don't know, some sort of animal person. And I said, hey, Bron, that person's getting robbed. Shouldn't we help them? And he was like, it's just a whatever they were called. And I'm like, yeah, but what about justice? And there was this guy in kind of Lance Connect, doppelsoldaten gear, and he had the flamberge slung over his shoulder and just so nonchalant and just cocky as fuck, just swings his head back towards me. And he'd been revving me up the whole thing, because he was real I'm the greatest person in the world, that real classic,
shots fired!
That real classic, Lance Connect kind of cocky attitude, and I'm being this super honourable kind of knight, and he's just fuck justice, and I'm like, and I look at Bron, and Bron's too busy laughing at this guy stirring me up, which, that went on for the whole event actually. And then, and so I just had to stand there and watch this person get robbed because the leader of my unit told me, don't intervene, because some guy made a funny quip. And then we came across an orc. As soon as all four of us descended, she turned and punched her shield into my knuckle, and it's still fucked up to this day.
Oh.
No, hang on.
I feel like that's a fun story, because I think we made them think that Australians are all just absolutely insane.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
the shield went in, in there, and there's still, a bit of a ridge there that's developed now, but it just... you know how like when you get those injuries wrapped across like a joint or whatever and it fills with fluid?
Yeah.
That just happened and I was like, fucking, that hurts a lot, you know? Like, someone have a bandage? And they're like, oh, wounded. And they're starting to roleplay. I'm like, no, like, I want to strap this. And like, they saw it all like swelling up. And they're like, you need to go to the Malteser and they need to take you to hospital because that's broken and you need x-rays right now. And I'm like, no, I've had worse back home. And they like froze. And then, but not like, oh my God, you're so tough. Like, what the fuck kind of froze. They were like, what? Like, I think they were literally on the verge of calling me a liar.
Yeah.
And I was just like...
And just calling the
like,
Malteser for you.
Yeah, and I was like, nah, like, I'll go to the Malteser, you know, like, get an ice pack or whatever, but I've had worse back home, yeah. And they're just like, no, it's definitely broken, yeah. And then went and saw the Malteser. They said the same thing. And I was like, I'm like, no, it's fine, you know. And they take me up. And they're like, look, we can send you in for x-rays, we can't force you, but, you know... It's probably broken. I'm like, I'd shake your hand and bet you that it's not, but it's a bit sore at the moment. I'll just go back to camp with a couple of ice packs if that's okay. So they gave me one broken and gave me one to take back, which broke in my pouch and cooled down by the time I got back. Warmed up by the time I got back to camp anyway, so it was useless. But yeah, and then the story went around the Sturmlanzer because of the way I described it as like my hand getting fucked up, that it was an orc fucked my hand.
Right, yes.
Wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah. Couldn't put it past him.
So, like, it was like the story of... Was it like an in-character story that the fact that it all fucked your hand?
It came that way, yeah, because I was like... people would, like, see that and they're like, oh, what happened here? I'm like, oh, my hand got fucked up fighting an orc, and I'd, like, pull I'd pull the strapping up, like, loose and then, like, show them, and they'd be like... and then, you know... They'd like turn to, again, actually it's probably Bron's fault now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But they'd turn to Bron and be like, German, like, and he'd be like, German, and explain to him, and they'd be like, oh, and then like...
Ein Ork ficken ihre Hände.
Yeah, ein Ork ficken mein Handy.
Your telephone?
No, small
that was
hand,
another
like
fun
a...
thing.
No, handy.
Yeah.
Handy is telephone.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know, but it's like mousy.
Oh, no, you're thinking of
It's
Handel,
Oh, Handel. Oh, okay. Yeah.
which is chicken.
What? No, not chicken. An orc fucked my chicken. This is why I don't take chickens to Germany anymore.
Well, not Bavaria anyway, if you talk about
No, but in 2016 as well, there's a guy that I'd been telling Package about that had been my translator at the hospital and that and everything. There's a guy in his Stromlands that had been telling me about, and then on like one of the last couple of days, I went to introduce him, he's like, yeah, I know, it's the same guy from my Stromlands, and we had that moment of like, because we've been telling each other about him all week, and he's the same one, it would have seen or heard about your hand.
He probably contributed.
Yeah, and my knee, because Buster my knee had a walking stick, and he's like, we noticed that you play very well. Like, you know, in the morning you sort of like walk around fairly well, and by the afternoon you're really leaning on it and everything. I'm like, it's because my knee's fucked. And I like lifted up my skirts and I've got this like metal splintered knee brace on, and he's just like, do you need to go to the hospital? I can take you. Like, I'm like, it's fine. I had an injection before I went. It just swells up sometimes, and like, it's fine.
To get back to the question, if you're picking a camp.
Go with the lunch connective, you can make the costume.
Oh, yeah, you have to apply to get it there.
There are applications.
If you're going with any of the main camps or the new dwarf town that's starting up as well, which is also costume, yeah, that only started in 2017. It was like a dozen people 2017, and now it's like 50 or 60.
That's pretty good.
There was a bunch of them. Like,
there's also
yeah.
there's
picking,
forums you can jump on to talk to people as well.
To understand, yeah.
But also because some of them are application only, you will need to actually speak with the people and show them your costuming and stuff like that.
There's not, but that's the minority of camps are application only.
Yes.
Yeah, some
like,
groups in camps you have to apply as well, but most camps you can actually kind of just rock up.
Yeah.
But it is nice to be able to jump on there and be like, hey, I'd really like to join you guys, like, but also just to talk to people, get more of a feel.
Just like I remember when we went actually, like, because we were part of the Grand Expedition, so we had the numbers to sort of support ourselves without too much of a drama. There was actually a group of, I can't remember where they're from, might have been Romania or something like that, but Anthony will probably tell me better. Like 4 or 5 guys who just sort of rocked up by themselves as a really small group, and they basically just asked around and attached themselves to the Grand Expedition, even though they technically weren't part of it. And for most of the battles, at least, they did a lot of their own stuff, but most of the battle, at least, they were actually with the Grand Expedition itself. And they're more European and probably more used to being able to do all this particular stuff. But they were just like a few guys that just rocked up and just didn't have all that much sort of plan involved, but they just talked to people, organised people, and just talked to people, and joined with us and got into it. It was really good, and they were really, really good for just the fighting that they were doing, stuff like that. They did big guys, armor and shields and stuff like that. Good vanguard people, so they were really good.
Yeah. No, definitely, I definitely encourage if you happen upon a scenario and it gives you an opportunity to role play with people or even just interact, do it. That's how we made friends with Multi and Benty. It's how we made friends with Tim and Raph and Drogo. And
the current green avatar, she's actually was one of the friends I met when I was over at Drachenfest.
All right.
So we've been good friends, and it was quite funny how we met because she was actually part of one of the brothels that was there during Drachenfest. And we had to have this big whole heist casino sort of thing going on and whatnot, and we were part of one. But we just sat down one night in one of the pubs and just was yap, chatting away. And we've been friends ever since. But I haven't been back yet to actually say hello again. But yeah, I noticed that she's become the green avatar of late. So it's like, oh, cool, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's an old friend of mine too.
Green Camp are the friendliest camp. You go to Red Camp, and they keep a guard on you and stuff. Same with Copper Camp, but I got taken prisoner. Slocum took me prisoner, and then he drags me into Silver Camp, and he's just throws me down on the ground.
To Green Camp.
And into Green Camp, throws me down on the ground because we're from Silver, and this is just after Silver had attacked Green. And he's like, Silver Camp, keep leaving their trash on our lawn, and they're like, trash. And they're looking at me, and they're like, this is they're talking German, and one of the questions they're asking each other, this is nicked trash, this is eine Ritter, this is not rubbish, this is a knight. What is trash? And it's they keep leaving. He had to they keep leaving our trash. He is trash, and they're like, oh, okay, to put down. Anyway, they took me prisoner. They healed me up. They fed me, legitimately fed me, made sure I had water, and left a guard with a couple of guards with me, and then sent 2 other people over to make sure I wasn't bored.
Yeah. Well, how was it? Your forcible picnic?
Yeah, my forcible picnic. They were bringing food and water over for me to interact with these 2 other people and the guards. It was, yeah. If you want a friendly camp, go to Green Camp. Also, their costuming stands aren't as super high as in aggregate the groups in Green Camp seem to not have a super high requirement of super intense or super period. If it looks the part, and you play the part, it's acceptable in Green Camp.
That's
you go to others Copper's got stringent rules that you are this and that because they're very you have to follow a sort of set of certain rules. I think it depends where you go. Depending on your sort of costuming level, and then the groups within those camps that you join too, which is another reason to get on the forums because then you find out what groups are in what camps. You also find out what infrastructure, libraries and temples and things like that, things you can interact with, and institutions.
Little bars.
I was going to say, little bars. There's cafes and bars. Silver Camp didn't have as many last year. 2016, they had 4 in the camp alone.
Wow.
It was insane. There was 2 cafes.
Try and do a pub crawl one night between all the camps in the town.
You won't make it.
You'll die.
Yeah, you
won't die because you'll be we're doing a pub crawl, and they'll be well, our camp isn't a pub, but we have beer, so get in here.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
But yeah, going back to costuming as a thing, another thing that I really liked is that people play what they can afford. So if you can only afford to get the undergarments, you're a peasant, you run around in your undergarments. 2016, one of my fondest memories, I've got 2 really fun memories of peasant sort of characters. One of them was a girl and she'd been taken hostage by orcs. And I saw her throughout the week and she was running around in the same underdress because you could slowly watch the mud that had seeped up it.
Yeah.
But I watched her getting passed from a bunch of pirates came and killed the orc and they're haha, now you're ours instead of being that nasty orcs, and just grabbed her chains and just marched off with her. So it's really great watching her get rescued and then
So
like,
turn into someone else's slave. Essentially.
yeah, pretty much. Like, but yeah, she like could just have that underdress. But in town as well. That time I made the trip into town, it had been really wet the night before, so it was really muddy. I had someone run along, grab a pile of hay, and straw the road in front of me, so that I wasn't like slipping and sliding in the mud because I was dressed like a lady. Like, just walked in front of me like through a decent chunk of the town, just like putting stuff down so they could walk on it. Just this nice young boy in like an undershirt and shorts.
Because I got a story like that, but actually it was at Conquest of Mythodea where it happened where...
Well, we can't talk about it on this stream. We're here to talk about Drachenfest.
Next week, Conquest of Mythodea.
It's the same again.
Same group of people, yeah. No, what I was doing is like late at night, this was at Conquest of Mythodea, and we were going from our camp into town. It was only a really short distance, so I was just going around, I think, the mercenary camp at that stage. And a kid, like, he would have been 7 or 8, perhaps, had come up to me and started speaking German. So he hasn't quite gone to school yet where they're starting to teach English or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers. But he was not too far from the camp where his parents were. So I just said, I'm sorry, I don't speak German and I don't know what you're saying. But his parents were also just like in a tent not too far away. So they've heard the conversation. He's basically explained to it. He basically wants to escort you in town for a copper with their torch. Because he was holding basically this torch with this flame coming out of it. Yeah. And I went, holy shit, that was the best thing in the world. I basically just go, here's a copper. And I got escorted into town with this little kid with this little torch. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, one of the questions that got asked after it, I think it's probably a discussion all by itself, which is the question of how do you know when it's appropriate to join a scenario? I think that is almost a complete discussion all by itself because that's really...
No, it's not. No idea.
When you know, you know.
It helps. It helps to know German, so you can. It's like it's like any LARP. You assess whether it's and with life too, you assess whether it's appropriate for you to interact in that scenario.
I think
so
it's also
definitely knowing German because that's their default. If you know German, you will understand what they're saying.
I disagree, but yeah.
And then, but they're not always gonna. Predominantly they're going to interact in German.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need to know German.
No, but a like, translator won't always be on hand.
Yeah. And knowing, I don't even think you need to do that either.
No, but if you want to join the situation that's already happening,
you could be
is
like
that what the question's asking.
You could be like looking at a bunch of witch hunters having a conversation. You know, no German. You rock in and being like, "So we're going to burn some heretics," and they're like, "What? No, we're just discussing dinner plans." And you're like, "Yeah, that's what I meant too."
I think what's important is to know. You can sense the intensity of a situation. One, like where I was at Mythodea, not that this podcast is about that, but I was actually being taken into a camp to be led to another camp to give somebody a sword lesson. But while that was happening, I was kept in this camp, and they bring this dude back on a stretcher who was like the group's king or something, and he had been mortally wounded, and they're doing a heal. You look at a serious situation like that, and I think you can't think of getting involved in a situation as becoming the center of the situation. If you see some sort of serious situation, but there's an opportunity for you to hold a bandage for somebody, or to help stand guard, or to bring somebody some water, you can bring yourself into a situation in a little way, and if there's room, you'll be invited to go further in.
Standing and looking concerned is very important, because if someone is a king on a stretcher, he's going to need a crowd to be like, oh my goodness, the king.
And also because, like, if you are sort of, like, standing and, like, being involved in that, like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Someone might be like, you, come here, do this. Like,
yeah,
and,
you just invent
and then you are invited in,
yeah.
which is a really easy way. But I think also certain groups are invited into certain situations. So it is really great if you can jump in with, like you had the Sturmlanzer, which is, like, a group within the camp. So you had the Sturmlanzer. I jumped in one of the archery groups.
Oh yeah, like officially joined. Oh no, not 2018. Okay.
But like, you know, there are like groups within your camp that you can sometimes join that will get invited into like different situations. Yeah, which is I think something that's a little bit harder to do as an individual.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, suppose I had a different experience than you guys because I always had groups of people that I could talk to, and it was well known who we were. So like most of the Germans who would come up to us, if they knew who we were, almost even if it's just by casual passing or anything like that, they knew immediately who we were, and we were in English camp, so they would always be speaking English. And the amount of people at Drachenfest and Conquest Events there as well who actually did speak English was actually quite a lot higher than just going out to the general German populace. I actually found it more of a struggle to communicate with Germans outside of both of the LARP events, just to even just order food and stuff like that. You know, so I think I probably did have a different experience to you guys because I didn't have.
But like with ordering food and like living and stuff, like I said, you know, Germans and a lot of Europeans, you know, they speak English pretty sufficiently. And I think, like, even though their default might be German for roleplay, they're still quite happy to make a switch where it's appropriate.
I know my archery group did training things and such, and, like, they would run it in German, and I usually picked up enough to understand roughly what we were doing. But one of their guys always came over and was like, do this, and then we're doing this, and you do this, and, like, sort of explained what everything was so that I could get a better understanding of what we're doing.
And part of it is, I think, that, like, I didn't get into the scenario, but I think part of it is that if you're in character and you're role-playing it, and they are speaking language you don't know, and you're not speaking their language and you don't know their language, role-play it that way. You know?
That's like our friend that decided not to use German because he's like, only going to speak English, my character only knows English.
Yes. So yeah, treat it as part of the actual experience you're doing. You don't need to communicate with these people because you don't speak the same languages. Make that the role play, trying to communicate with each other without speaking the same language. And generally most of them are pretty good and they'll play along with it. So,
but you just got to make sure that you're not hijacking a situation when you do it, and you don't make some really important event they've got going with, what's going on? I don't speak German.
Yeah. That's true.
Mom, holy fuck. Kicking in the door.
Though, another thing I found with with the language thing, a lot of people from other European countries, Norway, France, Spain, there's a lot of Spaniards who go, Italians.
Yeah, a lot of Spaniards, yeah.
All of those other groups use English as the lingua franca.
Yeah.
So they'll go and speak Danish in their own group, but when they're trying to interact with Germans or other groups, it's all in English. So I ended up with a lot of Spanish friends, Catalan friends, they're different. Italians, we met a bunch of Norwegians, and that's because we were all in this kind of the same boat of we don't speak German.
Well, I think as well, they use English as like the merchant's tongue, so it's sort of the natural secondary language. Because there are so many international groups, and it's easier to speak German and English than it is to try and speak German and French and Italian and like.
Okay, someone's actually asked a really interesting question because it's based on the money thing again, but in a slightly different view. Do you need to bring your own food in, or can you just spend all your money at Drachenfest and get everything you need food-wise?
You can, but it's not the healthiest.
No, I think you are better off. It's not hard to hit up a supermarket, even if you don't have access to facilities to cook. Obviously, if you can, it's awesome. But I think our first one, we didn't really have anything to cook.
No.
If you want to buy all your own food at the event, it's possible, but you're looking at €30, $50 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're willing to spend the money, it's not that much of an issue.
But again, if you jump on the forums, there are like camps that do catering options.
Yeah.
Which is probably a better way to do it.
But if you are also going to do shopping in Germany or wherever it is you're doing it, don't do what I did when I was in Italy. I rocked up into one of the shopping places they have there, and I was like, I have no idea what any of this is. And I'm not talking about it's just all the same stuff in Italian. It was just like completely different things. You're like, is that biscuits?
I see. I really enjoyed that because I'm like, cool. I've got no idea what this is, but I feel like I'll like it. Here's an adventure.
I found it was only a couple of things that were like that for us.
Might be for Germany. Like in Italy, it's different because in Italy it was a lot of
Strudel waffles.
Caramel waffles.
Yeah.
The ones that Ben gave us, and he's like, that's pretty much your calorie intake for the day.
Yeah.
They're these like two really thin like wafer waffles with like caramel in between.
Yeah.
And
From the
like,
Netherlands, though.
Yeah, they did them.
Yeah, you can get them in Germany.
Can you?
You can get them here.
Like, they're not as good, but they were the same sort of products.
Probably a good way of doing is that don't mind spending a little money for the food there, but like even just bring fruit or something like that for the first few days.
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely. It's also nice to have some fresh fruit. Like, I know I generally crave fresh fruit and veggies during the events because you can always buy meat on stick or
you just
potatoes
do what some
or
of us
whatever.
do and just, live off ale.
There's a guy in the Sturmlands who does that. He's a big guy too.
Yeah.
Like he's one of these
Coming
nearly
from
7
Mr.
foot guys.
Oscar and mouldy bread.
Yeah, but I'm eating bread. Like, you know, I don't know. He just drinks.
Mm.
I know, and then like if someone like will hand him something, he'll eat it. And generally, it's the kids in Silver Camp giving him the food because they know he doesn't eat.
Yeah.
It's quite, and he's really good with the kids. It's hilarious to watch this like 7 foot giant bend down and be like, hello, and like he's in all his armor and shit, and like this like tiny little girl, be like holding like biscuits for him or something. Yeah.
You make another interesting point there, though. There is actually a lot of kids who go to these events, and they're not put into these formal, like, kids' quest sort of things. Usually it's like, right, kids, here's your holiday, go have fun. And they sort of, like, get out and around the camps making their own fun, either feeding people. Sometimes they'll go...
Kids.
Yeah, sometimes they'll do a gate duty, like at Mythodia. There was just a group of kids who were guarding the gate and making sure you didn't have the plague and spraying you with water.
That's awesome.
And they appear to have...
they're like, you have to kneel down so I can check your neck.
Yeah. They seem to have their own...
No, you come to me.
They had their own little game going as well. Like,
Yeah.
I rolled around, like, into that little gatehouse they had at Mythodia once, and one of them's got another one up against the wall with a knife. And I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And they took my reaction as genuine, and the kid who can speak English was going, no, we're only playing. And I'm like, yeah, just keep playing. But,
Yeah. And I think, like, I know Silver Camp has a...
Die Kindergarten, the Die Kinderlager.
Yeah, the kindergarten.
Die Kindergartenlager. The Silver Camp is nicknamed Die Kindergartenlager because it's the childcare camp, the kindergarten camp. Because it is one of the camps that generally skews towards being
family friendly.
more family friendly, and that's just a natural evolution that it's had over time.
As people start having kids and still wanting to do Silver Camp.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that in my days. I'm getting drunk at Silver Camp a few times.
Oh, we've
still
heard
get
some
drunk.
stories about some of these people that we're looking at, and like, we're like, oh, their kids are so nice. And people are like, yeah. Now, back in 2008, that particular person, and we're like, fuck, like, and you've only known these people from 2 events, and, they're bringing their wife and kids.
Don't forget the moldy leather wrap jerky.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, it was good until the Thursday afternoon, all right? It was still good for breakfast at Thursday morning. And it wasn't the jerky that went mouldy, it was the sauce on it. I made
That would
garum.
actually make sense.
I made garum.
That's true. That would actually make sense.
Yeah, but like Silver Camp does run like kids quests.
Yeah.
Which is always amazing to see. Like you just get like 15, 20 kids running off after
They yell it out or whatever, huh?
Andress's wife.
Oh yeah, sometimes. I think that's more just because because
she was the only one I saw.
she's Andras's wife. There's a guy in Silver Camp. He's been there for yonks. Very well respected in and out of character. And then like his wife is she generally doesn't like take a center stage, but she participates.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, and then like obviously her kids following him around. I think it's because it's Andras's family that they're all like, it's the leader's kids.
But like I saw her taking the kids out places and stuff.
Oh, okay. Or maybe she does.
Oh, again, I spent a lot of time sitting just watching the square of the camp. So like, I saw her taking all the kids out at a few points, and she'd take them out to either take them around for something they'd set up, or take them because Drachenfest has a few like smaller side quests that you can get involved with to try and win eggs, rather than just the big all-out battles and I'm taking your thing.
Yeah.
So I think she took them out on a couple of those and got some of the people in camp to NPC for them and stuff like that, and it was just sort of great to see.
I think they have an advantage of just generally part of their culture more.
Yeah.
So I think that's potentially part of the reason why they can get away with it.
And like a lot of people, because a lot of the time with the water bearers and stuff that we were talking about before, you'll see kids jumping on and doing that, and the kids can jump in and do stuff like that. And they the kids make an effort to stay out of the way, but people also make an effort to stay out of the way of the kids, and they'll like stop fighting to like move around the kids and sort of like shuffle it sideways,
It's really good.
There is a general understanding, like as I said, one of the things I tell about when I tell the orc story is when we had the fight against the orcs to try and break the siege on Black Camp. it was at 11 o'clock at night. It was pitch black. There's no lights around.
Oh, how good are night battles?
Oh, they're so good.
Love night.
The thing is that because of the mentality behind it all and them understanding how it all works and how unsafe it can be, when I fell in battle against those particular orcs, I immediately role-played that I'd fallen. As soon as I did that, one of the orcs had basically just, in the middle of the battle, reached down, grabbed my hand to make sure I got pulled out of the battle and wasn't part of it. And I was like, immediately knew exactly what he needed to do, make sure I was safe. And as soon as it happened, I was going, well, that was mint. It was fantastic. Just like, bang, get out. You need to get out. Just continue on with the thing.
That's what you want.
I had an orc tackle me in the middle of the night, like walking through between town and camp, and she tackled me, and I was really surprised when I landed. I'm like, oh, I completely left the ground, but like that didn't hurt at all. Like, and I sort of had to hop up because I'm allergic to grass and whatever. And she's like, oh, everything's okay, like, you know, like, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, don't understand enough German at this point. I was a little bit inebriated. And
That's probably why it didn't hurt.
Look, didn't hurt the next day either, so like, yeah, but she was then like, checking on me, making sure I was okay, and she's like, oh, you can't lay down. I'm like, nah, like, I'm allergic, and she's like, oh, okay. Then you'll come and you'll play with us. And then she like checked out. She's like, oh, wait, you're happy to come and play? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So she was like dragging me like up and down after one of their mages and stuff. But it was really good. Like one of their other ones came over and like, do you want water or anything? Like,
I think probably one of the things that I remember, or at least when we were going, and maybe because we were Aussies and we were like probably the first set of Aussies that went to Drachenfest or something like that. Perhaps it just might have been a bit of that, but I remember just like, oh yeah, sorry, I don't speak German, I'm from Australia. Oh, from Australia, here, have a drink.
Yep.
Here, have a drink.
Yeah.
And like, if you guys...
Yeah, I don't like that they assume that we're alcoholics. I mean, we are, but
I do.
How dare they assume it?
they should at least ask.
But that's why
I was
they
like,
ask
I
you
don't
in
care.
Would you like a
Take
drink? Not
need a
get it
drink.
in ya.
Get it there.
That's our phrase
you
for us.
remember my big red brimmed hat,
Yeah.
right? So part of the story that I've got from that too is that during that orc fight actually, because that lasted, all of that whole experience was like at 3 a.m. in the morning before we finally went to bed. I lost my hat during that. I had no idea where it was. It got lost in the middle of the battlefield somewhere. I just didn't care. I was like so tired. I went to bed. I woke up, went to the town, come back, and someone said, "Oh, your hat's in the thing," because it becomes so famous that they knew exactly who's or at least what camp it was in. They're like, "Oh, look, my hat."
There's a lot of that.
You remember Slocum on the last morning? You just reminded me of like after the game had happened. This is a friendliness of Germans. Slocum was out drinking like after the final battle that night, and he'd fallen asleep somewhere on the side of the road in town. And during that time, somebody had like given him a roll of Glad wrap as a pillow, and he had 2 hats on, and
someone had put a blanket over him.
yeah, someone put a blanket over
They tucked him in town.
Yeah.
Like,
Just, yeah.
It's so nice of them. Like
I know.
I imagine they would have tried to get him up and realised he's not getting up. Oh, we'll stick it.
tuck him in here.
Tuck him in.
He's in for the night. He's good.
Didn't go anywhere.
I remember like when we went to I didn't go to the first silver camp. The rest of the guys went through. Like one of the Irish guys who was part of the group. He got into a lot of stuff and dragged us with it sometimes. And I remember the second night that we went to the silver camp, and we would basically just be given drinks, and we were just talking and drinking and talking and drinking. By the time I left, it had already become daylight for the next day. One of the guys who had been giving us a lot of
That was our last night, and we swore like we're gonna get a good night's sleep, so that way we're good for the travel.
Last night, man.
No, the last night we're sitting there and we're talking shit, and then we're like, "Oh my god, pre-dawn light!"
I mean, my favourite thing to hear from you in general is like, yeah, I'm gonna have another one. I'm just gonna go out for like 1 drink. I'll be home in an hour.
Doesn't matter the time zone.
My story on that one was like, I remember this one particular German guy, and he didn't speak English, or he's probably too drunk to care to speak any English and whatnot. But he just like interacted in such a way that was just hilarious, and it had this like really long sort of kind of like how your hair is at the moment, but a lot more sort of druidic type look. The way he was, so it was a bit more bangled, ratty.
Yeah.
And but the way he was speaking his German, his accent that he had with it, and whatnot, and just his whole demeanour, I couldn't understand anything he was saying. Sometimes it was being translated, but it was just like that cool Rastafari dude that would sit off there and whatnot, and just walked off into the distance in the morning light as we were all passing off to our different places. One of the guys who had given us drinks there, he gave us a good portion of his drinks, was so drunk, he got up to leave to go to his tent, tripped over one of the stools, fell on the ground, and that was pretty much where he stayed.
Do you want to tell your Nick Sprick story?
Yeah, I think we need to hear that.
We've alluded to it so many times.
I think we should explain how the camp is set up to start with.
Yeah, when it was in 2016.
They did it in 2018 too.
They did, but where it was located
where it was
too.
Yeah.
But so this involves the Landsknecht camp, and they have the most beautiful gates out the front. Well, actually, the gate's just one of those.
I was going to say, I'd call them walls.
The gates, the walls, they're painted very nicely.
Yep.
There's a dude giving a woman a piggyback. He's not wearing pants. There's a lot of boobs.
But they're epic tales.
Yeah.
All the fights.
It's a mural of Landsknecht kicking ass and then getting laid. Like that's what that mural is on their wall.
Yeah.
And they've got a wall that's like
waist height.
You can sort of lean on it. And so 2016, they were like the last camp before we hit town. So there was like 5 camps before then. So everyone had to walk past the Landsknecht to get to the town. And so as a pretty lady would walk by, they'd start shouting things at them. And naturally, it was in German, so we didn't really know what it was. It just sounded, lewd and horrible. You'd think it was like, we thought of it like tradies out on a work site being like, oh, g'day, love, you want to go for a shag later on, eh? But they were just shouting innocuous things like, oh, hello, you are very pretty, we want to marry you, sort of stuff.
That's something I think, like, the Landsknechts have been, like, some of the best, like, sleazy roleplay that I've ever experienced.
But it's not sleazy.
No, but that's the thing, like, it is
They're not, like, crass.
No,
Yeah.
but, like, it's in character.
No, sorry, they are crass, but it's not sleazy.
Well, no, but, like...
It's not sleazy, but it's crass.
Yeah.
It's point is, it is 100% in character. There is no like out of character thing. They don't actually make people feel uncomfortable.
No, and you understand that hearing it, they understand that doing it.
Yeah, and it's absolutely amazing. I haven't had anything else like it. Like I think it's really hard to do that sort of like hey, how you going? Like without.
In fact, while we're on this point, you can tell your story about when that sort of thing happened between you two in 2016.
Oh, fuck.
You
Jacob the Landsknecht.
Yeah, Jacob the Landsknecht. You tell your one first.
Oh, well, anyway, I wore a kilt because that's what I did. It's hot. I wear a kilt anyway. Who's seen me at Swordcraft. It's hot. Wave that around. Yeah, anyway, so I'm walking into town, minding my own business.
You were just wearing a kilt because it was laundry day or something?
Yes, it was laundry day. I was just wearing a kilt, no shirt. I might have had my hat. I would have had my hat on.
Yeah,
just wearing a kilt and a hat, boots if I'd remembered to put them on. And I'm strolling by the Landsknecht camp, and they start all of them shouting out, blah, 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 Deutsch, 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 blah, blah, blah. And Nick Sprick Deutsch, I yell back to them, and they all go silent. And this one, you have pretty legs. I slept with him. I mean,
that low wall informed the Eldar's heckle hole next to the gate, and because we realized because we were going to go with low walls anyway, we couldn't get the same effect, and we didn't want to just set up our eating area next to the thing, so we thought what we'll do is
they had. One of their eating areas was right next
we didn't want to do that, is what I'm saying. And then, inspired by the Landsknecht, we set up this heckle hole, and, basically someone would call out, that it's an elf, but in Quenya, in Elvish, and so we'd all, run to the heckle hole, and there'd be, 7 or 8 heads just, poke through the hole, and we'd be, yelling at anyone that we saw that had pointed ears, and we'd be like, no, just 7, and not in chorus or anything, just yelling, and and they'd be like, what? And we'd be like, show us your ears, and they'd be like, oh, and we'd be like, yeah, and they're like, what are you saying? We're like, you have pretty ears, entirely inspired because of that story.
Yeah. Oh dear. But no, your interaction with the last
Jacob,
Jacob.
We were waiting for you, Wader, and your mate to collect the drinking horn.
Were we?
Yep.
Is that why we were there?
That's
I don't remember why we were there.
We were standing out the front for a little bit.
We were looking at the mural.
Yeah. And one of the guys comes out and like tells us a bit about the mural and that. And then he has been talking to us for a bit, and then he's like, yeah, I am Jacob, and like sort of like holds his hand out, and I'm like, oh, I'm the like lady, blah blah. And then he's like, ah, lovely. And you, I don't care, to package. And we're both sort of like, trying not
I'm laughing.
Yeah, like...
I remember you telling me this particular story.
So we're both trying to like hold and laugh, and it was like...
I wasn't holding it in. I was laughing.
I did say trying.
Yeah.
And we both had that moment of like, oh, gotta reel it back in. And I'm like, that's my husband, you can't be so rude. Like...
Yeah, oh, like... So, Jacob's... It wasn't quite like that either.
Oh.
Jacob's like, like full flirting with, after he's done the, he's like, hello, and she's like, I'm lady, care package, and he's like, I'm Jacob, and, and I don't care, actually. And then physically turns and just keeps, like, he's locked on Kat. And I'm like, this guy's a cracker, I'm having a good old time because he's like flirting with Kat, and Kat's like, oh, well, like, I'm here with my husband. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm her husband in character. and I'm this honourable knight. This guy's a rapscallion. I need to get it together. And like, I'm trying to get it together. So this guy gets another full 30 seconds of doing his flirt routine. And then eventually I'm like, that is my wife!
No, I'm like, that is my husband. Like, and he's like, that sounds something more between you and him. I'm more interested in what's between you and me. And that's when Package bursts out with like, you suggest dishonor, sir! Yeah,
you suggest dishonor, and I'm trying to challenge him to a duel, and he starts being like, oh, no harm intended. All his mates are like standing up at the table, like, you said duel. And then Gerald comes back out with some schmoodlehefter, and... Schmoodlehefter.
Don't explain it.
No, I'm not going to. Yeah, and... if you want it, go and get it.
You want some, go get some.
Yeah, and Gerald comes back out and he like placates or at least distracts Jacob with this, schmoodlehefter, and I'm standing there being like, I was going to kill me a Landsconnect and then get butchered by 6 others, And they all just kind of sit back down. They're like giving us the stink eye until we leave.
But I think that was like also a really good example of like initiating physical contact without just sort of like grabbing someone, like... Because he, like, went to, like, take my hand, and he sort of, like, would pause for a second before he'd, like, take it, which would, like, allow me a lot of opportunity to be like, oh, no.
Yeah, exactly right, yes.
And I think this was, like, a really great way to, like, subtly sort of, like, check if someone's okay with something rather than, like, stopping the roleplay. Like, are you okay with this, and this? Like, just sort of being like...
No is generally no in character that we found at Drachenfest, unless it's, like... big cartoonishly like, I'm going to kidnap you, and it's like very big and elaborate, so you can easily duck it,
like
duck it or push him away or something. Like it's deliberately over the top, so that way it's deliberately telegraphing. So you've got time.
Part of the interaction essentially is you are not you're trying to do this physical thing, but you are making sure that you've given them enough time to respond in whichever way they respond to give you enough information whether to continue on or not.
The negative response is still treated as the no is no, even in character.
Yeah,
it's a cultural build that a lot of games could definitely learn from.
And
and I mean globally, like anywhere around the world that doesn't have that, definitely go to Drachenfest and try and find yourself in a situation where you might be kidnapped or whatever.
Get kidnapped.
And you will see the difference. You will see the difference in the scenario, especially if you've ever personally been in a situation where you feel like you're being railroaded by roleplay and forced and you don't want to do something, or if it's happened to you in real life as well. It's done with a compassion. And I think that's one key thing that a lot of role players can learn from Drachenfest is that it is done. Everything is done with compassion.
On that particular note, because we have been talking for quite some time, and actually it's pretty much 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
a couple of minutes too at the most. So I will, because I know what we'd like. We could talk forever about particular type stuff.
2020.
2020?
That is when a lot of Drachenfest people from all different camps and things are expecting Australians to go. That's the big one. If you can't make it this year, if you haven't made it in previous years, put it off till 2020.
2020.
I think I know about
Save it
30
up.
people that are planning on going,
Yeah.
like 30 Australians.
There's-
Different camps.
There's a
but,
bunch
like,
of people going from Melbourne. There's people talking about it from New South Wales and Queensland possibly going as well.
Hit us up if you want some planning advice.
Yes, absolutely. There's even people from Perth that I know of that are very, very keen to go in 2020, and Adelaide as well. The 2020 is the year that Australians invade Drachenfest, and they're waiting for us.
Hashtag let's take Drachenfest.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's show them how it's...
now I would definitely want to come here.
Yeah. That's the year to go.
Yep, start putting your money away.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, but anyway.
Term deposits are great.
Yeah. But start making friends on forums too.
Yeah, actually, that's something, because I think we found a lot that some people take a long time to get back to you on forums.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
Yeah.
At least a few days, which when you're trying to organise something, if you've left it to a month to the event, you don't have a lot of conversations to be having.
Unless you're Valek.
Oh, yes,
Shout out to
Valek.
Valek if he's listening. If
Valek.
Valek exists,
If he exists.
Yeah,
if he's even
Valek's a
real.
person.
Fucking Valek.
Well, tell
Do we
us-
have time for that or
No.
How long will it take?
A while. It
Yeah.
took a while to find it.
It'll take about as long
Like
as it took to find him.
All right, let's start the podcast again so we can talk about Valek.
But yeah,
And-
we
and
do a
next
whole
week on
podcast
TikToks,
dedicated to Valek and is he or is he not real?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be like a Bigfoot conspiracy. Valek's a mate of mine that I got to know on the forums. He messaged me out of the blue in before the 2016 one. We got talking and I was going to help him with a thing. I could not find him for the life of me. He gave me all these directions and specific things in 2016. And then I don't think I met him until like after the final battle. In 2016.
Well, because the people are still coming for the quest.
We met them, but we didn't meet Valek until after the final battle.
Oh, okay.
And then this year, we were meant to. He hired a bunch of tables and benches on our behalf, and we were going to pay him and then pick him up from him. And I'd met Valek and Kat had met Valek as well, but Gerald and all the others, they didn't know Valek. And we're like, oh, Valek's in Red Camp, and because he was in Red Camp, and we go to Red Camp 3 days in a row, twice a day to try and get our benches. We're like, does anyone know Valek?
That's our favourite thing. Like
his thing when he said in 2016, and he said it again in 2018. He goes, "Yep, just go to Red Camp and ask for Valek. Everyone knows who I am." 2016, the first time we went to look for him, it was at night, and all Red Camp were like getting drunk on the first night in character. We got bounced around a bunch of different lenses, and admittedly got free drinks and a good time. But every time we're like, yeah, do you know Valek? And everyone's like, no, who's Valek? After his brag, everybody knows Valek.
What was that one? Sounds like some...
Oh, Nordish.
bullshit.
Yeah, some Nord shit name. And we're like, ooh, yeah, a Viking Nord bullshit name. And we were like laughing at this guy in the sixth lines. Yeah, he was hilarious. And then, anyway... We just couldn't find him eventually.
Because he didn't give us like a place to look for a group name, nothing.
Eventually we went there. The last time we went there, he'd actually just been asleep in the tent. And as we're walking away, this is in 2016, some woman came up that we'd interacted with before. She saw us leaving after we'd struggled to speak German with the Germans. And she was like, I picked up enough that I could understand what she was saying. And she was like yelling at them about something. And she goes, why didn't you come and get me? I could have spoken to them. And... the guy we'd spoken to, just like, I looked back and he's like, what? English is all gonna boogada! And they all like had this cackle, and then like the whole of the first Lans, which Valek was in at the time, all jumping up and down, making monkey arms, going, English is all gonna boogada! He's in hysterics. Anyway, it turns out he'd just been asleep, and he came down to the overflow and gave us the thing. But the same thing happened again in 2018, and he promised it wouldn't, because he fucking switched camps and didn't tell us he was in Black Camp now. So for 3 days, again, I'm walking up and down camps with these guys, and they're like, is Valek even real? And then that was the joke. Who was Valek?
Yeah.
Does anyone know Valek?
He ended up finding us.
And he ended up finding us. He literally walked up and he was standing right behind me, tapped me on the shoulder before I turned around because I was fixing something on the tent. He was like, Entschuldigung. And then like German, but I can't remember exactly what he said. But I'm looking for someone, Sir Jack Package. I turned right around and he went, oh, thank fuck. I've been looking for you for 3 days. I moved! We were each other's ghosts.
Yeah.
It was meant to be. I hope Valek was watching. If not, I'll send him a link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been called out, son. Called out.
All right. Final party words. Next week, I'm hopefully going to be talking to Cicadia. I always pronounce it wrong.
Cicadia, isn't it?
Yes, whatever.
I thought it was a hard C. But
Anyway.
I could be. I'm talking to them next week. Hopefully, if the technology goes in my favour and we don't have to suffer from the internet of Australians.
Do you mind?
I'm sorry, I'll leave you to.
Thank you.
Don't just walk out on the stream. It's not finished. You're just going to have to put up with this.
Oh no, I meant like when you go to Joel's house tonight.
All right.
It's done.
You guys have a lovely night.
Yeah.
And on that note, I want to say thank you all for coming and listening to us crap on about Drachenfest and stuff. Thank you three for coming along and talking with me about Drachenfest and crap. And good night to everyone else. Thank you.
Night, guys.
Hello, guys. Of course, it's still going at the moment, so it actually hasn't ended yet.
Oh, well,
Can they
far out.